Okay, good afternoon, everyone. The Mega Network, which represents 30 manufacturing companies in Mid-Ulster, have been lobbying for financial assistance for apprenticeships. We were delighted last week that our report was endorsed by the Economy Committee and was forwarded on to the Minister last week. It was a brilliant announcement yesterday that £13.6 million investment was going towards skills and education. But we feel that it's a matter of urgency. Time is against us here. All of our young people are leaving education this week or the following week. And it is a matter, they're all sitting at home very uncertain about their future. And we want to give them some hope. We want to start our recruitment drive. But for doing that, we do need some government backing behind that. So today what we have three people here to answer a few questions to help with our campaign going forward. So first of all, we have Kieran. Kieran, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself.
Thanks very much, Maria. My name's Kieran McManus and I'm Assistant Chief Executive at Southwest College. I have responsibility for industry partnerships and also for Centres of Excellence at the college, Maria.
Okay, Kieran, can you give us an overview of the development of apprenticeships in Northern Ireland and highlight the opportunities they provide for our young people?
Indeed, Maria. I suppose I just have to give a wee bit of context. I suppose if we take a look at a Northern Ireland basis, Maria, the programme for government highlights economic growth as a key priority, and it will be skills that will develop that economic growth, increasing the productivity and competitiveness in our local companies. And apprenticeships are the key and most efficient and effective way of developing the skills in young people that are required by local companies. Apprenticeships provide opportunities for young people to enter education and employment simultaneously in receipt of a wage and also having no search for employment at the end of that course. The mix of college-based professional and technical training and the training and development opportunities provided by that very important cluster of advanced manufacturing companies in Mid-Ulster has been recognised across the industrial nations of Europe as the preeminent way to develop skills. Over the last 15 years, Southwest College has collaborated with the very strong manufacturing cluster in Mid-Ulster to develop a range of apprenticeships at level 2 and at level 3 and increasingly at higher level. And those apprenticeships, Maria, are very important in that economic context. They're also very important in a social and community context as they provide young people with opportunities to grow and develop close to home and take up them employment opportunities with that very important cluster of employers that we have in Mid-Ulster. The collaboration between the college and the cluster of employers across Mid-Ulster has led to the development of a suite of very, very important apprenticeships. Obviously, we have the Gold Technician Apprenticeship Programme and our higher level apprenticeship programme here at Southwest College. And again, developed very much co-designed in partnership with employers to ensure that the programmes meet the needs of the community, but also very importantly, meet the needs of those employers. And I suppose if we take a look at employers in the context, or apprenticeships, sorry, in the context of Northern Ireland, when we measure the importance of apprenticeships across the Westminster parliamentary constituencies, Mid-Ulster has the highest number of apprentices in Northern Ireland at 806, closely followed by West Tyrone and also importantly Fermanagh and South Tyrone. The reality of it is, Maria, that's down to the work of the employer network in Mid-Ulster, the support of the college and the buy-in from the community. So apprentices, Maria, are important across Northern Ireland, but they're vital. They're vital in Mid-Ulster, given the importance of this manufacturing cluster. We have a world-class cluster of advanced manufacturing companies in Mid-Ulster. They're talent hungry. They need increasing numbers of young, high-achieving people to enter their companies and support the growth and the development of these companies. The young apprentices that we are bringing on will be the talent which allow our companies to continue to compete at a global level.
So Kieran, that's brilliant, but there's a lot of apprentices at the moment have been furloughed, and it's a major concern that some of our companies will not be in a financial position to retain the existing apprenticeships that they are apprentices. And what are the implications of this, Kieran, for first of all the college, the apprentice, and then our local companies?
Indeed, Maria, as you said, we have been working through the process of furlough after the last number of months, and while furlough presented a significant opportunity to start with, As we move through that, Maria, and as we come towards the end of that furlough period and what will come after that, it's beginning to present a challenge, yes, to young people. Apprentices are beginning to become uncertain. Apprentices are wondering what the medium and long-term future is. From a college perspective, furlough presents a challenge to us. We must ensure that we work creatively and innovatively to identify mitigations and support for apprentices. From the company perspective, Maria, companies in Mid-Ulster have made a very significant and strategic decision to invest in apprentices as the key vehicle for promoting talent development. Employers have invested a lot of work, a lot of time and financially a lot of effort. And anything that disrupts that talent pipeline is something we must be sure to work through. Now, the number of furloughed apprentices that we have had was significant as we entered the start of the furlough process. Yes, it has reduced, and it has reduced at a different rate across sectors. However, we are at a stage where we see there still will be a number of apprentices who are ongoing on furlough. What we've been doing at the moment, we have our lecturers have been working with furloughed apprentices to ensure that they maintain their involvement in remote learning and online learning. That has been very successful to date. Our staff are currently working with furloughed apprentices and awarding organisations to develop adaptive assessment models, which will allow our apprentices to continue to progress on the knowledge-based components of their qualification. Training support officers are working with apprentices on a weekly basis to promote online learning and also to look after the pastoral needs of apprentices. The college is working very closely with our sponsoring department, the Department of the Economy, to identify support and mitigation methods and models for furloughed apprentices, and also, very importantly, models of mitigation and support for employers. We want to avoid at all costs any sort of a shock to the apprenticeship system. We want to ensure that our existing apprentices are retained. We need to look at creative and flexible models to ensure those apprentices are retained in employment. We also want to avoid any drift away from apprenticeships as we move towards September. So it's very, very important that we have a call to action for all stakeholders to ensure that we are flexible, we are proactive, and we're solution focused to make sure what we have invested in over the last 15 years is sustained. Maria, this time will pass, and it's very important that we remain in place, that our talent pipeline is not dissipated in any way, that we maintain the integrity of that talent pipeline for employers. Over the last 15 years, the community in Mid-Ulster, the very creative and flexible cohort of employers in Mid-Ulster, and the colleges, and the college, Southwest College, has worked to develop a very important apprenticeship system, which has ensured that young people see apprenticeships as something to aspire to see the value of apprenticeships, and that is very much aligned with the apprenticeship systems across Europe. Industry in Mid-Ulster is a very creative force. It's a very important force. They are talent hungry, and it's very important that we can secure that continued talent pipeline of apprenticeships. The key message is that we need to maintain the structure and the integrity of our apprenticeship systems in Mid-Ulster. It is unique. It has been a product of the creative forces that have taken the last 15 years to come to fruition. Employers in Mid-Ulster over the last 15 years have not been found wanting. They provided employment and apprenticeship opportunities for young people across this community. It's very important now that all stakeholders work collaboratively to support employers and apprentices through this transitional period, and ensure that as we come out of that, we have no shock to the apprenticeship system, and we can continue to grow and develop the apprentices, which will allow our companies to compete on the global scale.
Thanks very much for that, Kieran. That's brilliant. Adrian, I'd like you to introduce yourself now, please.
All right, Maria. My name's Adrian McCreish. I'm the Deputy Chief here at Mid-Ulster Council, which really doesn't mean a lot other than I go to meetings that Anthony doesn't want to. I've looked well on my business card and made my mother proud. I'm also, more importantly, the Director of Business and Communities here at the Council.
Thanks, Adrian. Adrian, would you describe to those listening the role and importance which manufacturing and engineering plays, not just in our local economy, local communities, but in the wider economy as a whole?
The figures speak for themselves in terms of manufacturing, Maria. And let me just say before I start a rant about stats and bore people, I'm not going to repeat what I normally do, but part of my job is to understand how our legislators are thinking so that we can shape policy coming out of Stormont. So I do join a lot of the committee meetings down there by way of information and listen in the background. I was very, very proud, I have to say, both to you, Maria, and to the chair of MEGA, very, very proud that the Economy Committee are sitting there now quoting MEGA in terms of shaping policy and policy approach, not just for apprenticeships, but in terms of skills and reskilling. That basically, guys, speaks of the progress that has been made in the last year and a year and a half of elevating the Mid-Ulster message that Kieran has talked about to the very national level. So credit where credit's due, and I just want to acknowledge that. To answer your question, Maria, very quickly, well, you know, a couple of 100,000 people involved in manufacturing across the north. We're more concerned parochially about ourselves. You know how important manufacturing is here. The 17,000 manufacturing jobs across Mid-Ulster alone. The interesting thing is that I was on a call with Kevin Holland this morning from INI, and he was informing us that the latest figures for INI client company furlough was 8,000, which effectively is about 40% of our entire manufacturing base in Mid-Ulster is furloughed. That kind of speaks volumes of where we are. Enda and others are moving those back into the workplace, and increasingly day by day that number is reducing. But I use that number to remind them of exactly where the manufacturing capital is and the real central base for manufacturing is, and where the future investment should be located. I suppose in terms of the positive is that we have the centralisation, the economies, the great expertise that all of our engineering businesses have created and emanated brilliantly well in your interviews with Pat O'Neill over the last 50, 60 years. That itself brings difficulties because you're super sensitive both to global trends as well as national trends. I suppose in terms of the negative side of the COVID-19 has been that across the UK, Mid-Ulster is in the top 10 in terms of GVA impact, minus 45%. The repercussions of that are huge. They're just enormous in terms of potential unemployment. Already in 1 month, our unemployment increased by 130% in the month of April. So we've jumped pretty much from full employment to an unemployment level that is probably in double digits already, and probably would double over the next 3 months as furlough comes to an end and either people will go back to work or they'll be laid off. So the economic multiplier of that, Maria, in the wider economy, you have the whole supply chain. And for every Dara Cullen, you have multiple smaller businesses supplying Dara, supplying Terex, supplying CDE, and you have companies supplying them. So the economic multiplier of that is huge and significant, all interrelated. The rising tide lifts all boats, so does a lowering tide or a tide declining impacts all boats as well. And I think that's where we are. So in terms of getting out of this, businesses are back working, businesses are back trading, businesses are back creating international links. Supply chains, yes, are broken, but they're being rebuilt. They may change, and they're likely to change, and they probably should change moving forward. So it is a new norm. Not everything will change, but we have the culture, the imagination and determination, and you wouldn't want to be anywhere else trying to recover. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I suppose, Adrian, before this, you know, manufacturers are on a real high and strong demand, you know, globally and locally, you know, and it's the biggest challenge, I suppose, the reason that my MEGA was created is that they couldn't get to try and get more people into the sector and to create a better talent pipeline, I suppose. Could you provide a picture for us of the role of apprenticeships play in the growth and development of the entire sector, and explain the potential repercussions of pausing or halting the pipeline, even for a short period of time?
You know, there's a couple of things. If you go to the very strategic level, Maria, the role of apprenticeships are not an answer on their own. They have to be part of the overall skills strategy. And you'll recall, Dara was at a meeting with himself and Kieran, I think, as well, with the OECD and the Hill O'Neill in January of this year. And we lobbied very, very hard to central government to review and revise the whole skills strategy for the North, right across industries. And they brought in the OECD, which I thought was a great move. And I've read the report, and I'm sure you did. And the content of the report, I think, is fantastic. I think it supports the work and the direction of travel of our skills forum, and particularly MEGA and the MEGA element of the skills forum. What I want to see and what I want industry doing is speaking very, very loudly for the rollout of that from central government. And the conversation you had with Kieran will be impacted by that very significantly. And, you know, Kieran's absolutely right. The apprenticeships are there and need to be there. But I would differ slightly, and I can say this because I'm not in the college environment, but I do believe there needs to be a bit of a shock and awe approach to apprenticeships. I do believe the OECD report provides for a range of approaches moving forward: an academic approach, a college approach, and an industry-led approach, and an industry-shaped approach. And that document states that very, very clearly. And that's what we've been saying. I think that's what our employers have been saying. And that includes, you know, that includes shaping even 2 day here, 1 day there, reshaping the very makeup of an apprenticeship. They're doing this right across England. They're doing it right across Europe. They're doing it as part of their growth deals. And they're basically reshaping, rather than an off-the-shelf solution of apprenticeship devised in Belfast and rolled out through the college across Mid-Ulster or anywhere else. We should be shaping our own apprenticeships in this part of the world that suit and led by the college in partnership with our businesses, but shaped by the engineering sector, shaped by the agri-food sector, shaped by the construction sector. You know, off-the-shelf, bespoke, one-size-fits-all, them days are gone. Our businesses don't operate like that. Southwest College is a market leader. It doesn't work like that, and our apprenticeship program should reflect how our best businesses work. And just coming on there at dinner time, I had no idea what I was going to say, so I was reading Irish News. Brilliant article, and actually I'm reading yesterday's Irish News today, right? And I'll photograph this if you haven't seen it, but a brilliant article in the business section yesterday, Apprenticeships Key to Recovery. So just really hear this, Mayor. This may just answer your question. This was about a £40 million innovation through Innovation UK. You'll be aware of this, Kieran, brought out specifically on apprenticeships. And it comes in the wake of the EUJ finding that the economic damage of the COVID-19 crisis will hit young workers hardest. And youth unemployment, a cohort that includes the bulk of apprentices, could jump from 8% to 28%. 8% to 28%. Etc. And it goes on, blah, blah, blah. So the other thing it says, Emery, apprenticeships are the best way for businesses to find and develop new talent, and they are vital to our economic recovery in the short to medium term. And that says it better than what I can say it. Yeah. Young people are the lifeblood. Young people coming into my organisation, coming into our leisure centres, coming into our sports arenas, coming into our recycling plants, they bring in new vitality. They bring in new life and a new out fuddy-duddies like me and Dara and all the rest. They're sick looking at us, you know. And, you know, so the opportunity to bring on that young mindset, and of course they think they know it all and all the rest, but that's the beauty. That's the beauty of youth. It's managing and curtailing that enthusiasm and embracing it. And Mother Nature, unfortunately, conspires to separate, giving you the energy of youth and the wisdom of being older. Yeah. If she combined the two at the one time, then you would be formidable. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there you are.
Thanks, Adrian. And I suppose, you know, I'm very conscious of being an ex-careers teacher, or as such, that young people are very, you know, very uncertain times at the moment. They really are sitting at home and you know, they have no idea what they've done, what they're doing. They've missed out on a couple of months of guidance there, and the NRC and SWC in a meeting this morning stated that their numbers are down for next year. So it is very worrying. So that's why we're saying that it's a time frame. It is a matter of urgency that we start to give these young people some hope. Dara, I'm going to give you the next question. So you're very welcome, Dara. So you maybe introduce yourself.
So my name is Dara Cullen, and I'm the Managing Director of Edge Innovate. And we manufacture equipment used for the recycling of products.
Okay, thanks, Dara. So, Dara, your first question, what do you see as the stumbling blocks for companies to commit to new apprentices this year? And by not employing them, how could this have a detrimental effect on this industry overall down the line?
So the context of where our industry has been just before COVID is that our growth of all the companies in Mid-Ulster has been stunted by the lack of available people and skills, and recruiting apprentices year after year has been probably one of the most important factors contributing to the growth of our businesses. Now, where we are at the minute is that a lot of companies in this sector are making people redundant, and that's actually started already, even though the furlough scheme is still in operation. I dread to think what the redundancy level is going to be like when the furlough scheme is wrapped up. So how is a company going to take on new apprentices in the context where it's making people redundant? It's just not going to happen. And the issue with apprentices is that you cannot be an apprentice unless you're employed by a company. So our industry is very, very afraid at the minute that the level of apprentices within this sector and within manufacturing in Mid-Ulster in general will ultimately collapse in the intake that will be September 2020. Furthering on from that, if that collapses and we go to something like 20 or 30% of the amount of apprentices that we usually have, that's going to put serious pressure on the training providers like South West College. So at one hand, we're saying to South West College, we're having, in 2019, we're having 400 or 500 apprentices. In 2020, September, we're going to have 100. And then hopefully we'll have another 400 or 500 in September. That's going to be very, very difficult for the training providers to handle. So we don't expect that the system itself can handle that, and we don't think that it's as easy as turning the tap off and turning it back on again. So we're very afraid that not only will existing apprentices, say in second or third year of their apprenticeship, be made redundant, but also that new apprentices will be recruited. And we're afraid that that could be 300 or 400 people lost to this sector just for this year alone. And that will in turn have a domino effect in years to come in terms of how the apprenticeship system copes with this. So it's a very worrying time for our industry.
Yeah. Yeah, Dara, and Dara, you sit on the chair, you're the chair of the mega networks, you represent the voice of all of our companies. So what support do you think that our local manufacturers need to enable them to continue investing in apprenticeships for the next 12 months? And what do you envisage as the outcomes of such interventions?
Well, thankfully, the issue of apprenticeships is a hot potato at the minute, and more people are starting to realise the importance of apprenticeships for industry, and not just in our sector or in this particular region. Even across the UK, the Westminster government are starting to debate how they can intervene with apprenticeships. So it's hugely, hugely important. So from our point of view, there needs to be some financial intervention from the government so companies can take on apprenticeships even though they don't need them. Because ultimately that's the crux of the matter. Companies don't have the orders or the work to retain the amount of staff that they had pre-COVID. That means redundancies, and that means stopping recruitment of new people. But apprenticeships are an investment. Sometimes they're a long-term investment, and sometimes they're a short-term investment, in that a really good apprentice can start to contribute positively to a company almost straight away. So, but the issue is not just about today and tomorrow, it's about the long term. If we can't recruit these new people and retain apprenticeships into this industry, then growth will stop. And in the long term, that will have irreparable damage in this region. It'll have irreparable damage in Mid-Ulster. Adrian already spoke about the knock-on effect of it, losing people to unemployment. not just the supply network to the manufacturers, but also our local shops, our local retail outlets, everything that goes hand in hand with running a successful economy. So crushing and screening in this part of the world accounts for over 40% of the world's market. And I don't know any manufacturer that is happy with that. Most manufacturers in this industry want to get that 40% up to 50% and up to 60%. And together we're well capable of doing that. We compete with each other pretty wickedly, let's say, in the marketplace, but that's life, that we make each other stronger. But this whole issue of apprenticeship is a serious issue for all of us, and it's very important in that we can take a negative here and turn it into a positive. A negative would mean that companies don't take on apprenticeships, and we don't grow. And we've got what people are now talking about, the pandemic generation. So that's a new term that I've just heard about 3 days ago, and I must have heard it 100 times since. And there's a big worry that our youth, our young people, are going to have this label against them, that they're the pandemic generation. They're the ones that left school and couldn't get a job. But we can stop that happening. If we get some intervention from government, we can help employers take on these apprenticeships, that when recovery comes, and Adrian and Kieran already said, recovery will come. It's only a matter of time. But every company wants to be in a position that when this recovery comes, that we are in the best possible place to take advantage of it. And we can, and everything is relative. We're competing on there's an economic war going on, and there always is. And it's all relative to where our competition is geographically. So we're competing against manufacturers all across the world. But if we can get an edge in terms of the apprenticeship model that we have in this part of the world, that means that we will grow, we will export far more, our standard of living in this part of the world will increase, and it's a no-loss situation. Everybody's a winner, but it's hugely important that government sits up and takes notice, and if there's any intervention that they should be given serious consideration to, it's this intervention.
Yeah. And we talked about, Adrian, I'm going to just talk to you here now. We talked about this, like we know the apprenticeships will add value to our local businesses. What do you see as the long-term benefits of this intervention of government stepping in and giving a handout? Sorry, Adrian, you're mute.
I agree entirely with Doris said about strategic intervention. There are times to intervene and there are times to not intervene and let the market address supplier demand issues. This to me is a time, it's a COVID-19 response that requires strategic intervention. And to be fair, credit where credit's due, the government have done some very clever, intelligent, high-level, highly financially driven interventions that have helped businesses and us all, including my own organisation, in the public sector. We ourselves are losing £700,000 a month income in our own organisation with the closure of our leisure centres and things like that. So we're all hurting and all the rest of it, and we're all trying to strategically work our way back into the workplace. But let me just say this in terms of moving forward with apprenticeships and to hopefully answer your question. The price of not doing this, let's go back 20 years. Let's go back to the point where when we were being reared in this part of the world, the environment, and Kieran, in your part of the world, I mean, we're talking about us vying with Strabane for the leaders of unemployment every week and every month. You were talking about huge amounts of friends that we grew up with that couldn't get work, that had to emigrate, went all over the world. Some came back, most didn't. Those that stayed, some got work, some didn't. The implications of unemployment go way and beyond the economics, way and beyond the economics. So the whole social fabric of the society that we have, Maria, is turned on its head. So, you know, it's things like health, both physical health, mental health. Unemployment has a massive impact on that. That in turn has a massive impact on the pressure we put on our health service. and so on and so forth. The whole concept of unemployment, economic inactivity, and the impact that has on social services and support services. Crime, the whole impact on civil unrest, crime, civic pride in their villages and their towns. That's all impacted by people and a feel-good factor. And nobody feels, you don't feel any better than when you've got a job and you're doing a good day's work and you're getting a decent wage. Life doesn't get much better than that. And to not have that in your life is really goes totally against the grain of our culture and how we were all reared, and the work ethic that we have in this part of the world that was created, as Pat said, by a must-do attitude where you have no public sector jobs, therefore you created your own. And that's in us all. So unemployment is not an option. We're not going back there. We can't allow ourselves to go back there for our children. We can't put them on the boats and ships. We can't be sitting with football teams struggling to place a team out next Sunday because 7 or 8 of the young lads are sitting over in England or sitting in America or Canada or Australia. We can't allow that to happen when we have the best businesses and the best industries and the global leaders here. So that is why we need immediate intervention. That is why, in my view, we've put our own economic response to government. Mega have put it. I listened in, Kieran, to the college's contribution to the economic committee as well, or the education. I thought it was absolutely on the button. They were pushing hard and they were saying we need strategic, immediate intervention. And apprenticeships, if they're not affordable by the private sector, the public sector need to intervene and sustain them and subvent in the short term to make them affordable. And to take that, it's insignificant. That cost is insignificant to the public sector, but it's very significant in our local economy if it's done. And the bottom line is this, guys, and I'll finish on this. Young people, for all the positives, they're very, very fickle. And if they're lost this year to that industry, Kieran and Dara will know better than me, you don't get them back. You don't get them back. So this is the challenge. We really can't afford to miss the boat. So
I suppose I'm going to wrap up there, Adrian, with that and just say that, you know, the reason I took on this job as Mega is that I believe that this sector could offer fantastic opportunities for our young people right here at home. That COVID has been a wee blip in that, but I would hope that we will actually come out stronger, that companies, if they get some sort of government intervention, will not only take on apprenticeships, will take on more apprenticeships over the next coming years. Thank you all very much, folks, for taking part in our Q&A today. I really appreciate it, and we hope to have some action now.
Very welcome. Take care,
Thanks.
guys.